Story time of one of my many embarrassing moments in high school. So my sophomore year, I was talking to this guy, and we had been talking for 4 months, and he didn't want to date me. I didn't know that until one of his friends said, "Oh yeah, he's just using you to do stuff." And I'm surprised he let it drag on for 4 months because I didn't do anything with him. But now looking back at it, he would always ask me to come over when his parents weren't home. So anyways, I really liked him, he broke my heart, and yeah. So the next day I had school, and I had a class with him. And all of his friends were in that class too. And I planned on ignoring everybody and just keeping my headphones in. Well, one of his friends asked me if I was okay. Bad idea. The waterworks started and I started sobbing in class in front of everybody. I felt so bad for him. He just asked if I was okay. And guys, everybody was staring at me. It was so bad I had to be removed from class. Toxic best friend story time. And no, this is not the same one. I know I have bad choice in best friends. Do not come at me. So a few summers ago, I was single and I was talking to 2 boys. One that I had been talking to for months, but I didn't know if he liked me because I kind of got more of best friend vibes. And the other one I was talking to for not that long, but he was kind of a douche. So, who did I tell about these 2 boys? No other than my best friend. Well, this girl took it upon herself to text the guy that I was talking to for months and say, "You're just her backup plan." And she was the type of girl that would talk shit on other girls to guys that they liked to get the guy's attention. So he told me that she said that, and I confronted her about it. She goes, "I just don't think it was right you were doing that to him." Meanwhile, she was talking to this boy that she really liked, but fucking other people. We were not able to bounce back after that. Story time about how my best friend and I used to get away with hanging out with boys. So my friend and I's parents were really strict, which meant no hanging out with boys, not even if a parent was there. And we would always come up with these elaborate lies to do stuff that we weren't allowed to do. And we were in high school, so we really wanted to go hang out with one of our guy friends. So we came up with this plan where we would tell them that we were going to a football game because it was a Friday, and that an Uber was coming to pick us up. And there really was no Uber, it was actually just our guy friend coming to pick us up. But since my dad didn't let me go in Ubers, we had to go to my best friend's house. And her parents were fine with it because they loved me and thought that I was the most perfect child on earth. So we get in our Uber and we just go to his house and hang out the whole time. I literally don't even know how we got away with this because it was the same exact car every time and the same exact Uber driver every time. Story time about how I got caught skipping school almost every day of my senior year. So our school had just started this new thing where you fill out all your contact information online. And my dad was like, "Okay, yeah, just fill yours out." And it pretty much was who can pick you up, who can make early dismissals for you, who they can call if you're in trouble. Well, I decided to be a sneaky little bastard and put my boyfriend in for every single one of those contacts. I would start school around 7:30 a.m. and I would go to the nurse's office at like 9 a.m. and she would call and my boyfriend would act like my dad and be like, "Okay, yeah, just let her drive home." Well, my guidance counselor noticed after about 3 months of me never being at school. So she called the number hoping to speak to my dad. But instead she got my boyfriend. And he just thought it was a random person, so he didn't act like my dad. Because neither of us knew. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2. Okay, so pretty much what happened after that is she called and she found out that it wasn't my dad. And then she went digging and she called my sister to the office and she was like, "What's your dad's phone number?" And my sister was like, "Why? Don't you guys have it already?" And I also put the same numbers for my sisters so that way in case this day came, then it wouldn't look suspicious. Well, I don't know what she threatened my sister with, but she scared the hell out of her, so she gave her my dad's number. And so my sister told me whenever she got home, so I went to school the next day. And it was like a surprise party whenever I walked in the office. The dean was there, the principal was there, and my guidance counselor. So I got in trouble and then they were like, oh, we're calling your dad. So what did I do? I left before they called him. Extremely toxic best friend story time. So when I was in 8th grade, there was this boy. And this boy would go around telling almost every girl that he liked her. And I was one of those girls. And he would do stuff with all of us. And there were like 11 of us. So we all hated each other. Especially this one girl, and we're gonna call her Abby. And every time we saw each other, we would be super mean to each other. Well, a year passed, we stopped talking to this kid, and I bumped into her at homecoming and basically apologized. So after that, we became best friends. And everything was good until every time I told her about a guy, she would start talking to them. Like this one boy that I was Snapchatting and talking to, she accidentally sent nudes to him and said, oh, sorry, I meant to send them to my boyfriend. So then she called one of my other best friends and said, no, it actually wasn't an accident. And of course he told me because he was my best friend. So I was like, whatever, and stopped talking to the boy. And she did it again, like for part 2. Extremely toxic best friend part 2. So pretty much her excuse for that was, oh, well, he said that he was gonna leak my nudes if I didn't send him them again. Which was a lie because literally half the school already had her nudes. So then I started talking to this other boy. And he lived like right down the street from her. So she was like, if you want to go to his house, you can. And I was like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, just go tell my mom. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went and told her mom where I was going and went over his house. So I walked back to her house and she literally locked me out. Like her mom had to come open the door for me to let me in. And she was like, oh, it's a good thing you came back when you did. Because I was going to drive you home now and tell your dad everything that you did. And she goes, I don't think you guys should be together because you're unexperienced. And she would always tell me how he flirts with her all the time. So after our friendship ended, she goes, I just felt like it was always a competition between me and you. Story time about my toxic ex-boyfriend that I met in therapy. Little background information. I was a part of this therapy group where you would go every week and talk about your feelings. Well, I saw this really cute kid, so I wrote down my Snapchat and gave it to him. He added me back, and then we started dating like a week later. And for the first 2 or 3 months, everything was going smooth. And then he became really toxic and controlling. Like, he would always go through my phone. And any guy that I had a streak with, he would accuse me of cheating on him with them. And it got to the point where he was literally so clingy. Like, every second of every day he wanted to FaceTime, he had to be talking to me. I had to have my location on. And I would explain to him that I needed my space, but he literally just did not get the hint. So by this point, we were literally on and off all the time. And anytime that I broke up with him, I would block him because I didn't want to think about him. But he started calling my parents and complaining about me. So they blocked him. And then he tried being friends with my brother to get to me. Story time about how I hooked up with a guy in my science teacher's closet. So my whole grade went on this field trip, and everybody was dressing super nice, wearing a dress. And I wore a dress that day, even though I was more of a leggings and t-shirt kind of gal. And I wore spandex under because I hated not being able to move around. Well, after our field trip, everybody's jumping around on the bus, you know, I don't care what I'm doing because I have shorts on under my dress. And after school that day, I get a text from one of the popular boys. And he goes, I'm really physically attracted to you. And I was like, oh, same, like, period. And he was like, wanna hook up tomorrow? And I was like, during school? He goes, yeah, I have a place where we can hook up. And I wasn't really experienced with boys. So I was like, fuck it, if I'm gonna experiment, it's gonna be with you. Cause he was really hot. So the next day I meet him during lunch, and he takes me to this one spot, but we couldn't hook up there because it wasn't blocked off like it usually is. So we go to my science teacher's room, and right after we hook up, our science teacher walks in.